gummy bear.
It's the internet. You're busy. Let's do this for May 6, 2024. For the next hour or so, let me help you sort through the world of gaming on Game Mess Mornings Live with me, Jeff Grubb. Today, the Helldivers PSN login saga has reached its zenith with a stunning twist ending, and Activision hates us, and we now have the proof. Also, Nintendo just said they're going to talk about the new Switch tomorrow in some way. But first, please join me in welcoming today's co-host, the Game Mess Mornings. It's Emma Fyffe, everybody. Emma, how are you doing?
Just great. I got my coffee.
Yeah.
I got my cat.
Yeah.
Right here. He's just barely out of frame. You can see his little nose poking in. He'll probably be around. Mostly he'll just lay on my hand. That's the thing about this cat. This is, he, anytime I come sit down at this desk, like he's doing it right now, but you can't see because he's in front of me, but he just like will lay on my hand or rub his face all over my hand or stand directly in front of the monitor that I'm working off of. He just really likes to be involved in everything that I do.
Oh, kitty cat. Yeah, my cat now just basically yells at me for more food. That's his main mode in life is just to yell at me.
He's an old man, right?
Yes. Oh, yes. He's getting up to like 13, 14.
Wow.
Yeah. Old and big. That's the way we like him around here.
Yep.
How was your weekend though? How you get any games played? You just
oh my God, it was great. Yesterday I spent some good time and I threatened to do it earlier on this show a few weeks ago to download Star Ocean: The Second Story R, even though I was like, I don't need to play Star Ocean: The Second Story again because I played it on PlayStation. I played it on the PSP version, and now I'm playing it again, and you know what? It is great. Love all the quality of life improvements. Some psychopath went in there and they re-rendered all the maps in like a 3D, like following the back of your character's head perspective. It's love the new character art. Absolutely, totally enjoying it. And then the other thing I did this weekend was my fiance has a friend who is in a group called Extra Live. So basically they're all like studio and touring musicians, but they have this other project they do that is all like rock renditions of video game music, primarily from the 16-bit and earlier era. But the way that they do it is in a choose your own adventure format. So basically there's a story that you're following and periodically it comes up in the audience and you have to like make the next choice. And so they play songs from video games and they'll use like B-roll from games. So the new one and they have a new show now. This one's like a post-apocalyptic one where you live in this world of robot overlords and are trying to like free the people. It's really, really fun.
That sounds great.
Yeah. And my friends, we went with some other friends and one of them, he said afterwards that they, 3 minutes of them playing the music from Dire Docks. He's getting married this year, but he thinks that might be the best moment of all of 2024.
That's incredible. Okay. Yeah, that sounds really fun.
It's really fun.
I spent basically all day yesterday taking care of my yard. It's getting out of hand. I got to do something about it. So,
yes.
Yeah, I'm over it. A kid came by and he was like, "Do you need help with lawn care?" I'm like, "Get out of here, kid!" And then I'm like, "Wait, why?" I should have said yes. What was I thinking?
Yeah, you're like, I need to rethink this.
Get back here! I'm so sorry for being a mean old man. But next time I see him, I'll just yell at him to come mow my lawn instead. It'll be a different kind of yelling. All right. Let's see here. You know what? Let's explain what we do here. Most weekdays, I, Jeff Grubb, will help piece your gaming life back together. That includes breaking news and maybe even some of our own original reporting. For all these topics, I'll get the input of a bona fide expert who will make me look smart. If you are watching live on Twitch, welcome. You can always listen to the show later on podcast feeds by searching for Game Mess Mornings or find the RSS on giantbomb.com. You can also catch the show later with chapters and timestamps on YouTube. Hello, YouTube. All right, we have a lot to get into, so let's start the morning mess with Nintendo says it will talk about the next game console at its investor meeting this week. This is something that just popped off right before I came online. Let's see, at 10:40 a.m. Andrew Marmo on Twitter captured this from Nintendo's earnings relations investor portal, or investor relations, I should say. And I'll read what they say here. They said the main dialogue topics and matters of interest to investors. These are the things that it's planning to talk about at its financial earnings call with investors. Topics covered include financial results overview and business outlook, business momentum of Nintendo Switch, the next game console and business impact of a hardware transition, IP strategy, including the visual content business, capital policy, ESG, and sustainability initiatives. That is kind of what I was expecting, Emma, in terms of, hey, this is Nintendo, and they when they start talking about these things, the first place we usually hear about it is in a very vague reference in an earnings report, in some like official SEC approved documentation where they say this thing is going to happen. Let's all get ready for it. And here we are. It feels momentous, even if it's also extremely boring. What do you think?
Sure. Yeah. It's one of those things where everybody knows that Nintendo is going to make another console.
Oh, yeah.
They're, the Nintendo's not going to just give up. Certainly. And we've talked about this before, that Nintendo is in this very advantageous position of having these IP that nobody else can touch that are extremely beloved, like your Marios and your Zeldas. So yeah, I mean, it's like, we know Nintendo's going to make another console, and that it's about time. And here we go. We're going to hear that it's definitely happening. So, but again, it is that confirmation of this is happening, even though we all knew that was definitely. I feel like I'm talking in a circle here, but I think you get what I mean.
It is circular, right?
Yeah.
It's like we knew this was going to happen. Here it is. Yeah. Now it's happened, and they did it in the exact way we were expecting. So
right,
we kind of know how this dance goes a little bit. I think when it comes to Nintendo, we always look for patterns. They don't always abide by those patterns, but this one is I think dictated by a certain obligation to investors that they don't normally ignore. So here we are, we're getting this.
Right.
What do you think this means about the timing, though? Do you think that they say this little tidbit here in this document, that when they actually have the call, first of all, what do you think they're going to say to investors? Do you think it's going to be anything in depth, or is it just going to be vagaries?
I think at this point, we might actually get something in depth. Because once again, we're already hearing talk about PlayStation 6s and Xbox Infinities, whatever the heck Xbox is going to call their next console. So I do think that we are in an area wherein we need some more concrete discussions about when we are getting this hardware. Maybe it feels like the time for new hardware is holiday. I feel like saying holiday 2024 might be a bit ambitious, but then again, they had a whole ass Mario game last year that nobody knew about. So,
yeah, true.
It's an interesting call with Nintendo.
Yeah. So, we've had some conflicting reports, and they are all just reports and rumors at this point, but conflicting reports that, hey, maybe the Switch could still come out this year. Most of the reporting, most of the rumors say, nah, the thing is Nintendo's pushing it back internally. It's coming out sometime in 2025.
Yeah.
There's obviously a question then, do they still try to get it out before March, which would be before the end of their fiscal year? They probably would like that. But also, this is not a company that is like looking around being like, God, we got to make sure this fiscal year looks good or else we're boned. I think they have the investors have a pretty good idea of like, Nintendo's going to release something. If it's not this year, then it's next year. So if we want to like see, reap those rewards, let's stay on and keep our investments in this company. So I don't think Nintendo would panic necessarily unless they are ready.
Right.
But I think that, the chances are if they were trying to launch this thing this year originally, and the games were coming and they're pushing back the system so the games are ready and so they can get enough hardware made, I think that probably does mean we get it early next year.
I agree. And again, it's like, it just doesn't feel like in a year after they had a gigantically successful Zelda title that they would have something ready for launch. And they're going to want to launch with big Nintendo IP titles. So I agree with you that realistically next year.
Yep. Also, apparently Family Boards, the Nintendo fan board has just crashed.
Oh no!
That's where we're at. This is what's happening right now. Is this kind of news happens, and the nerds freak out, myself included. So yeah, I think, I'm trying to remember how it went down with the Switch. I think, it was very similar.
Yeah.
And then I think what they did is, if my memory is correct, and chat, feel free to hop in here and correct me. When they did have the actual earnings call with investors, I think they did mention the code name, like Project NX or whatever they called it. It was NX, but like Project NX or something like that. But they didn't really provide much beyond that. That's what I expect to be happening at this call. Is they'll be like, hey, yes, we are working on Project Blank, and we will talk about more of that later. Here's what you should know otherwise, though, in terms of, hey, what's this transition going to be like? Here's the vague ideas of what we're trying to do to make sure it's as smooth as possible. Nintendo Switch Online will be will continue completely uninterrupted, so you can expect those revenues to continue unabated from those kinds of things. I think they'll talk about the business optics side, and they will be very vague about any specifics for this device, except for a code name, and then maybe some allusion to some big, new feature that they put on the side of the box that may or may not matter in the end. And with Nintendo, for these big consoles, they always have something. And when it's like the Wii, it's like, oh, the motion controls were central to that thing. It was super important. And when it was like the new 3DS, it was, here's an analog nub that no one's ever going to use. So you should buy this thing for that, which I did. But they always have something. Maybe they allude to that, but probably not. So, okay. So we get through this call, and then we expect the thing sometime next year, maybe. Do you think that means we get like a video teaser of this thing this summer?
One would think that we would get some sort of sample of, I don't know what stuff is going to look like. It's so interesting. Nintendo is so interesting because, as you point out, it's more about feature innovation than it is about like keeping up graphically with what's going on PC, etc. So I don't know. Maybe they tease a Donkey Kong. Like, we haven't had a Donkey Kong in a while, so.
Yeah, so we'll have news about that here in a little bit. So that maybe not. I guess it's been so long since that. Maybe they switched to something else. Either way, I think this is like definitely going to kickstart a lot of. We were already in Nintendo Switch to speculation mode. But there is a difference between like we all expect it to be happening, and now Nintendo could be talking about it at any moment. There was no real chance, no real opportunity or likelihood that Nintendo would have started talking about this thing before this moment, before they warned their investors, hey, we actually are now in that mode, get ready for it. This is like the starting gun. So now we are at the point where it's like, okay, this thing probably is getting manufactured right now. So leaks probably can be a little bit more trustworthy and probably come a little bit more frequently. One of the reasons they're very likely talking about this thing to investors, because investors are going to start hearing about it. Nintendo's like, here, just listen to us. We got some actual facts for you. And then exactly. And then it like they could drop a video at any point this summer or later this year, whenever. But it's like now it officially could happen. So it's worth getting excited about, and I'm relieved because I think at a certain point, the Switch, I am starting to feel nostalgic for that device, where it's like I have kind of put it in the past a little bit now at this point because I've just played all the games I wanted to play on there, and I'm like, I'm ready for a new Nintendo device, so it's exciting.
Yeah, my cat's clearly excited about it because Light he's in here and he's screaming about it, so we're ready, Nintendo. But once again, it's like Nintendo has their pies in so many ovens.
Yes, they do. Yeah.
It's just like, do they? Yeah, they're to be Nintendo and be able to just kind of, really let stuff cook until it's perfect. That's nice for them.
Yep.
It's really nice.
Yep. And I'm going to bring this, let's just bring up this little thing on screen here for everybody.
Sure.
Let's see here. Got it right there. There we go. Okay. Now it's news assets. And this is on the nintendo.co.jp investor relations page. And again, main dialogue topics, the next game console and business impact of a hardware transition. Now, again, if this is what they're saying here in this thing, it could be no more than like that little thing. There is a next gen console, or even like they just they just gesture at the idea that something will be happening, and it doesn't have to be more than that either. So it's like, we're getting excited, we're starting to speculate in a big way. It also, there's no guarantee that that's how it'll go down. It could be very much like, of course there's going to be a next generation, and that's the most they say about it. Although they probably would still answer questions about like, what does a transition look like? They do say that, well, a business impact of a hardware transition. That's probably what they're most interested in talking to investors about. So we'll see how that goes down. All right, moving on here to the hell of a story out of Arrowhead about Helldivers 2. Let's go through this chronologically a little bit. So last week, Helldivers 2 was hit with some tough news for a lot of people, where Arrowhead told their community that PlayStation was forcing them to add on PSN, like a PSN login requirement for the game on PC. There was a huge reaction to that, and that started with a bunch of negative review bombing on Steam, to the point where the developers came out and were like, holy crap, this is nuts. We are talking to Sony. We'll see if there's anything we can do. We're basically they said, we're on your side. So Helldivers 2 devs apologize as it's hit with over 100,000 negative reviews. This is from Andy Robinson at VGC. The developer of Helldivers 2 has apologized after fans barraged the game's Steam page with negative reviews over news of a mandatory PlayStation account requirement. On Friday, publisher Sony announced that from May 30th, the Steam version of Helldivers will require all players to sign in with a PlayStation Network account. This requirement was briefly present when Helldivers 2 launched, but it was removed after the game's huge early success led to technical issues. Many PC players, particularly those in countries where the service is not available, are clearly not happy with the return of the PSN requirement. So this was like a weird scenario anyhow, Emma, because it was something that was required at one point. They did mention it on their Steam page. It was something that you could have expected to come back, and yet it has been months and it wasn't there. The game clearly works. People are wondering, one, why do I need this? And two, hey, I'm in a country where where PlayStation Network is not available, so I can't even sign up for it. So I'm going to lose access to this game. That seems bananas. And that they're right. And so they just got slammed with negative reviews. And I don't know if it was like really hurting the daily active users. I was kind of paying attention to that a little bit. Seemed like it might have been down a little bit weekend to weekend, like compared to last weekend to this one. The number of players on Steam, on the Steam database, like tracker, might have been down a little bit. But either way, like clearly a massive backlash. And this left them in a pretty tough space. And you got to imagine, like at the studio, they're going, we told you, Sony, this was a bad idea. But this is, Sony published this game. They probably got to make that call. What do you think the conversations were like at that point?
I mean, it's just wild. I mean, it's a clear misunderstanding of online gameplay. It's like if you're game is available on Steam in regions wherein PSN is not available, then you are literally cutting those players off. And so again, it's like, how did we even get there in the first, you know what I mean? Like how can you add this requirement later? And as you mentioned, the fact that it was initially listed as this was something you were going to have to do, but then it was functioning without doing that. And then coming back around on it, it was just a stupid move on Sony's part.
Yeah, and it's I think it's very easy to be like, well, that's nothing. People sign into 1 million games. That shouldn't do much. But like seeing the headline, and let's just jump to the next one right now. Helldivers 2 removed from Steam in 177 countries. This is from Jonas Mackey at Game Reactor. Everything was running smoothly for Helldivers 2, which set one record after another for Sony on both PC and PlayStation. But for some reason, Sony decided to shake things up and announced just before the weekend that a PSN account would now be required to play on PC. The developer Arrowhead and Sony said that it was a security issue, something that was widely panned by the community after all the security leaks that have hit Sony over the years. And as a user wrote on the Steam forum, and they basically just documented a timeline of all the times Sony has been hacked over and over again, whether that was PlayStation Network or like the Sony Pictures hacks, whatever. It's like, don't come to us. That was always a terrible thing to say, right? Because we know that that's not really the motivation. You're doing this because this is already the 7th highest grossing a PlayStation published game of all time, and you want to have more control over how that's going to work and be able to funnel more of that money towards you. And we get what's really happening here. You want the data. And so just coming out and telling peeing on people and calling it like rain, it's just a bad move. And then on top of that, it's a bad optics because Sony is a company that is associated with getting hacked over and over again. Beside all that, 177 countries. Really, before I realized just the extent of it. And it's like, there probably is some like data. It's like, okay, well, you add up all those countries and the number of players there don't even match how many people are playing America or something like that. I don't know if that's the case, but even if that were the case, 177 countries, how could you possibly make this move when it looks so bad like that? So they were really getting panned at that point, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's just such concrete data showing that you gave all these people access to this game, and then because of the lack of availability of the PlayStation Network, you are negatively impacting 177. Like, that is, it's not like, oh, it was 5 or 6 countries. It's almost 200.
Right.
So yeah, it looks real bad.
It's and it's not even the kind of thing where it's people are like, the backlash was happening, and people, and I think a lot of times you go like, and the people go, oh, well, this country can't play anymore. It's like, well, you never even thought about that country before in your life. Now you're just kind of getting mad on their behalf, so you could backlash against this company making a choice and making you sign into something you don't want to sign into. At a certain point, at about like a couple dozen countries, it flips over to being like, nah, this is just what's right. It's just right that you don't do this move, that you block all these people who have been playing the game and have purchased the game and have spent money on the game in all these countries. They should have every right to keep playing. So it's like, I think there was like some talk about about like maybe not requiring PSN in those countries and things like that. Throughout this entire time, the studio and the CEO were sort of out there kind of like, hey, we are continuing to talk to Sony. We hear you, and we are trying to represent your interest when we have these conversations. So again, it seems like Sony was pushing for all this, and it goes back to what you were saying, this misunderstanding of an audience to such a detrimental degree. And really, I don't think we haven't really seen a backlash this severe for a move like what would otherwise feel like this small in a long time. But it's like, this is such a popular game, and people feel such an ownership over it that they really let Sony have it, right?
Sure. And ultimately, it's the ownership thing that is the reasoning behind Sony wanting people to have to link their PSN accounts. They want that data. They want to be able to claim those users. Because, PlayStation's entire thing is their like first party partnerships that they have. And those have, if you take, for example, like the Final Fantasy of it all, those have not been doing well financially. And granted, ultimately, that is something that's going to affect Square more than it affects Sony, but they do have that first party partnership. For example, because we did a partnership with Square for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which was super fun. Please watch it if you haven't. But the big thing we were pushing was Sony, not Square, because again, we were featuring Square's game. So this puts Sony in a position wherein they can basically claim all of those Helldivers users, and they can do that more effectively by forcing people to have those PSN logins. But obviously, that's a huge oversight because PSN isn't even available in a ton of the places where people are playing this game.
Yeah, and that like, there's like something to be said for that. Why isn't PSN available in those countries? I don't get it. Like, how? I mean, signing up for an account for PSN, why can't you just have that set up? And why hasn't it been set up to this point? And how hard can it possibly be to get set up so that this wasn't a problem in the first place? Is do that before you make this move. And then there's like less argument, less of a position that the community can have. You'd be like, well, you just sign in. Now we'll get to like, that's still a bad idea. And we'll get to that here in a second, but let's get to the big twist. Sony revokes widely despised Helldivers II PSN linking policy. This is from Nicole Carpenter at Polygon. In the days since Sony Interactive Entertainment announced an unpopular Helldivers 2 and PlayStation linking policy, players have been flooding the game's Steam page with negative reviews. By Sunday, more than 200,000 of Helldivers 2's 266,126 reviews on Steam were negative, filed in the aftermath of the disastrous announcement. But the review bombing worked. Sony heard Helldivers 2 players and announced Monday that it's no longer requiring Steam players to link a PlayStation Network account. Helldivers fans, we've heard your feedback on the Helldivers 2 account linking situation, Sony wrote from the PlayStation Twitter account. The May 6th update, which would have required Steam and PlayStation Network account linking for new players and for current players beginning May 30th, will not be moving forward. Helldivers 2 game director and Arrowhead Games Studio CEO Johan Pilstedt added that he's impressed by the willpower of the Helldivers 2 community. Over the weekend, Pilstedt, who is known for his transparency on social media, has been updating players via Twitter that Sony was in active conversation with Arrowhead over the policy, but that he didn't have the final say. As part of that tweet from Sony, by the way, they said, hey, we're still figuring out this whole PC thing. We're still figuring out this PC community thing. And I think that is, like, once again, the lesson. Gamers are so loud, so vocal, so savvy, and so tapped in that you need to be very cautious about how you approach them with something when you want them to change, when you want to change their behavior. And we've learned it over and over again, I think. But forcing them to do something it can work, but rarely is it done without consequences. And sometimes it doesn't work and it's this bad and you have to change it by the end of the weekend. You have to set on Friday and by the end of the weekend you have to change it.
Yeah. And ultimately the developer comes out of this looking fine.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You know, like it's Sony that looks like idiots here.
Sony's hubris once again sort of like rearing its head in a way where it's like people are like, that's what people are saying out there. People are saying on the street, what's going on over at Sony? Well, they raising the price of PSN and adding all these tiers that are confusing and like what was all those moves and all these stories about indie game developers not like using the indie game portal on PlayStation and them closing down Japan studios and there's like a series of things where it's, all these companies have problems. Sony's at the highest profile, so when they make a mistake, it's very, very noticeable. But I think as people say, I'm like, what do they have their finger on the pulse? I think this was one where I think their eyes just got as big as saucers. They looked at the plate, saw the money, and saw the data, and we're like, nope, we are getting in on that now. You can force people to change their behavior by forcing them and requiring them to sign in online. Bad idea. Someone in chat pointed out the obvious answer is just give people a bonus when they sign into PlayStation Network, and they will just do it. Them. You lead them. You don't push them. It's that simple. Yeah. We are all buying. No, we're not all buying. I have a digital digital PS5 and an Xbox Series S. And when they release new consoles, if they don't have a disc drive, I am going to buy them at this point because they've slowly shifted me to all digital. Despite the beginning of the Xbox One generation, everyone freaking out about them trying to make us go all digital because they tried to force us at that point, and I was among the people complaining. And now they've led me to this place where it's more convenient, and I'm happy with it. And now I've made the choice myself, and they won in the end. That's the way you do it.
Yeah. Well, again, they basically came out on Helldivers and said, you need to log into your PSN account. Why? Oh, just because. But as you say, if you give them a nice reason to do it.
Yeah, or Swinship says, jingle a nice set of keys above me. That's all I ask. It's all I need.
It's not hard.
Very simple. Yeah. In the end, I think that this will be studied. This is a moment in gaming where it's like, boy, wow, that got out of hand fast. And it's a reminder of why gaming is such a powerful marketplace, because you don't get this kind of reaction from an unhealthy place where people are sort of not spending much time or thinking about it or not spending their money. The people who are in gaming are paying a lot of attention, and that means they're probably spending a lot of extra money, and that's why they feel so invested and feel that ownership over it. And so there's power there. That's the kind of fuel that can power these massive corporations that want to make these massive games. You could do that, and you could succeed because of the passion of this community. But then that passion can get turned against you if you get a little bit greedy, if you reach a little bit too far. And I think it keeps these companies in check, and I'm always appreciative of that. Hey, yes, well done. The community spoke up, and they were able to get the big corporation to back down. And hey, at the end of the day, this is the best case scenario, that it goes back to being the way it was. because that worked just fine. And if they want to try to do something again, they will have to incentivize. And then if they give me a couple bucks in premium currency, I will sign in and with my PSN account, no problem.
Yes.
No problem.
Just give me a good reason other than you just have to.
The capper of this story is Helldivers 2 devs are considering turning the game's review bombing graph into a cape. This is from Kyle Knight at DualShockers. Arrowhead CEO John Pilstedt has said that the studio is considering making Helldivers 2's negative review graph into an in-game cape, thus immortalizing the great Steam and PSN account linking fiasco forever. Earlier today, PlayStation announced they would be reversing the decision to force PC players to link their Steam and PSN accounts in order to play Helldivers 2. The announcement came from Arrowhead's hit live service game, when the hit game was barraged with negative reviews over the weekend. Basically, they made that change, but they showed like a mock-up of this cape, which, if you don't know, players in Helldivers 2 can wear cosmetics, including a helmet and armor and a cape. And the cape just had the gigantic red lines that show up on a Steam review page when it's like, okay, here's the green graph going up. And if you look at the bottom part, here's the negative ones. And the last several days, it was just these massive red lines all going down until Monday, where it's like, here's just a few negative reviews. And you could just, it was actually a pretty cool design. And apparently they're going to put it in the game. And I think that's a great idea. I think that the other side of this is you can sort of ride the bucking bull of a scenario like this as a CEO of one of these companies if you actually are representing the gamers' interests. If your community is your number one concern, the way it seemed like it was for Pilstedt throughout this entire scenario, you can kind of tweet through it. You can be out there like talking it out, and then at the end coming out looking like a kind of like a slick superhero, and being like, wasn't that rowdy? Wasn't that fun? Let's go immortalize that as an item in the game and get back to the game. It's inspiring a little bit. I don't know.
I totally agree with you. Again, look, the way that the people got in there to make their voices heard, and unfortunately it had to come through review bombing, but you know what? It got people's attention. It got Sony to retract their dumb policy, and ultimately, as you say, the devs come out looking good, and they're able to embrace this as something that ultimately is kind of funny.
Yep. Yeah. It's, it's the kind of thing where, it's going to be something they look back at and laugh at. You're right. That's very cool. And and Sony, what they're going to learn from this is probably either you have to be Ticketmaster or you have to be beloved. Like Ticketmaster exists so that they can charge all these extra fees, and everyone hates them instead of the bands. It's like, hey, we're gonna go to this concert.
True.
Like, oh fuck Ticketmaster, look how much they're charging me extra. It's like that turns out a lot of that money kind of still finds its way to all these other entities that are involved, but you don't think of them. You get mad at Ticketmaster, and Sony clearly doesn't want to be like Ticketmaster. They need that positive feeling toward them still. So it's like, well, then you can't mess around. You need to understand what you're doing before you do it.
Speaking of Ticketmaster, don't forget to get tickets to see Giant Bomb live in Los Angeles
on sale now.
Sunday, the 9th of June.
Yep, definitely pick up those tickets immediately. Looking forward to it, everybody. I think we'll have some announcements about some big guests this week. Was able to lock some folks down. We're gonna align on that. I was told I need to align on everything, and then once we do, I'll tell everybody what's going on. All right, let's take a quick break. When we get back, we got some more stories, including one more about linking your PSN account, but this time it's good news. And then what's going on with Vicarious Visions and Donkey Kong right after this. All right, we are back. And as promised, one more PSN account linking story, this time for Ghost of Tsushima on PC. It is not going to require that account linking on Steam. This is from Marcus Hersilla at Game Reactor. Last weekend was wild for Helldivers 2. Sony decided that starting today, May 6th, it would have been mandatory for players to link Steam and PlayStation Network accounts in order to play Arrowhead Game Studios' Helldivers 2. For current players, this demand would have started on May 30th. People online went berserk, and in the end, the mandatory link between Steam and PlayStation Network for Helldivers 2 will not move forward. Game Reactor recently reported about this extensively. So if this was the intention for Helldivers 2 on Steam, how about Ghost of Tsushima? Sucker Punch's samurai action game is coming to PC on May 16th, 2024, but it does not require linking your Steam account to your PSN account in order to play. And that's just for the single player, to be clear. The single player will not require that in any way. Now, it's the main part of the game. There's that Legends cooperative online mode, however, and that is going to require a PSN account. So I guess, I mean, I guess as long as they're doing it from the beginning, they're probably going to be able to get away with it a little bit easier there.
Yeah.
But also there is this massive single player portion that most people are going to come to the game for. So they probably won't even think about logging in, signing into their PSN account until they maybe try Legends eventually. So I think this is not going to be a similar scenario at all, right?
Absolutely not. Yeah, this Ghost of Tsushima is a perfect example of what PlayStation does, which is the single player epic story experience. And that's what this game primarily is. So again, you are coming to this game to experience the story on your own, not to participate in some kind of online gameplay. So yeah. Yep. Okay, cool. Some people will play this online, and if you have to link your PlayStation account from the beginning and they don't have all kinds of login issues forcing them to basically rescind that at launch, then yeah, I mean, this is not going to be another Helldivers scenario.
Yep, and it's very clear at this point because they have had it's like so visible. Yeah, for sure. And I think at the end of the day, signing in a PSN is never going to be an issue for me personally. It wasn't an issue for me when the Helldivers 2 story broke. I'm like, yeah, I just cannot personally care about it because that's something I do for all these different games. I don't even think about it anymore. It is like a one button thing because I have signed into so many of these outside accounts previously, and that stuff is saved through Steam. So I just hit one button. And it's like, yeah, you're logged in. So I just couldn't care. It was like when I saw that was 177 countries, that's when it flipped over. I'm like, that seems fucking insane. Yep. What are we doing here? Then you get to Ghost of Tsushima, and they're like, yeah, you'll be able to play most of what you want to play there without any account linking. And then this online feature that was always a bonus for this game does require it. Whatever. I'm back to kind of like, okay, fair enough. I mean, what does that mean for that 177 countries for the Legends online multiplayer mode in Ghost of Tsushima? Well, now they know don't buy it for that because they're well aware. But also, hopefully, Sony just launches PSN in those countries so that people can just log in and play that if they want.
Yep.
All right. Vicarious Visions was making a 3D Donkey Kong platformer game. This is from My Nintendo News. The name Donkey Kong Freedom may not ring a bell to Nintendo fans, but that is because this was the code name for a 3D platformer Donkey Kong game that unfortunately got scrapped years ago. In fact, the only reason we even know about the game is due to a report by DK Vine, as well as further findings uncovered by a new Did You Know gaming video. The game was being developed by Vicarious Visions, which has since been renamed to Blizzard Albany because there's no justice in the world, for the Nintendo Switch. It was going to take a place on a large open island, and its gameplay would emphasize the kinetic energy of the Donkey Kong Country games, but in 3D. Donkey Kong would slide down vines and ropes on his feet. Kong would also have had banana peels as makeshift shoes. This was in response to feedback from Miyamoto, who was concerned about Donkey Kong getting rope burns on his feet, because of course he is. Meanwhile, Donkey Kong himself would have had his own original look with bigger arms and smaller legs. The game's story would have revolved around a factory opening on Donkey Kong Island, basically damming the river and causing problems with their bananas. As you can imagine, that would have upset the Kongs. Apparently this got shut down because Activision lost interest or something like that. This was years and years ago. And it seems like Activision's like, working with Nintendo on one of their games, sure, that might be okay. But what's better? You should be working on more Call of Duty games. Maybe we'll let you do this Tony Hawk thing, but definitely get back to work on Call of Duty. Now Vicarious Visions didn't end up going to work on Call of Duty. They got subsumed into Blizzard instead, and basically made Diablo 4. Like they were like very key to that process. I get that Diablo is very important to Activision and Blizzard. Said, man, I really wish we would have got this. I like Vicarious Visions a lot, and this is a real bummer.
Yeah, and I think that Donkey Kong works well as a 3D platformer. The story about the Donkey Kong needs to put bananas on his feet so he doesn't get rope burned is adorable.
Yes, I like that a lot.
I love that. And I like, This is a good negative effects of industrialization on the environment story, which
that's what
that
they were going
resonates
for.
with me. So I don't know. Donkey Kong deserves a good game, and it sounds like there was a lot of potential here. So this is a huge bummer. I'm happy that this team had a lot of success with Diablo 4, because again, that is a huge
Definitely
part of the ActiBliz model. And that game was good. So I think this game probably would have been good. I don't know.
Yep. I was, there was always been rumors for the last couple of years that there was a Donkey Kong game in the works. That probably wasn't this, because this seems like this was scrapped a long time ago. But Nintendo definitely seems interested in doing something with Donkey Kong. I think this would have been a fantastic fit. And really what it bums me out is at this point, okay, so Vicarious Visions is now just Blizzard and is probably supporting Diablo and maybe going to work on some other stuff, but it's going to be Blizzard stuff for sure. I don't think that team gets extracted back out to like become Vicarious Visions ever again. But you know, the reason that bums me out is like, man, now Microsoft owns the Vicarious Visions and Activision, and they could have had a Vicarious Visions that was making more Tony Hawk games, which we'll talk about in a second, and then working on some of these 3D platformers for a lot of the franchises that Microsoft owns, you know, Crash and Spyro and Banjo-Kazooie, and all that stuff would have been excellent, but like now that team can't even work on that stuff, and Toys for Bob is external, although apparently they're working on something as well. I like 3D platformers a ton. And
me too.
It's like, man, just a couple more of those every generation at this point, not even every year, every generation. I would really appreciate that.
I was just thinking I feel like one of the best 3D platformers in recent years is Astro's Playroom. You know what I mean? Like there's so much potential for the 3D platformer to have a big comeback, and Donkey Kong feels like such a good fit for it. So this is, it's sad.
It's a bummer. Even more sad, Activision rejected Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3+4
this story
in favor of supplementary Call of Duty work, it is claimed. This is from Jordan Midler at VGC. Activision reportedly rejected a pitch for Tony Hawk's 3+4, preferring Vicarious Visions to work as a Call of Duty support studio. In a new video from video game historian Liam Robertson, it's claimed that following the huge success of the first remake, a pitch for a second remake collection was created. Initially, the first remake, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1+2, was planned to include 3+4 as well as the first game. Instead, we settled on adding some handling features from the later games to reflect the way people remember the old Tony Hawk's Pro Skater games. The improvements from 3 seem to bleed into people's memories of the first two, claimed one Vicarious Visions source to Robertson. Eventually, it became clear that we didn't have time for more than 1+2, so the idea that we'd continue on and release a 3+4 in some fashion was on the table. A pitch for Tony Hawk's 3+4 was presented to Activision following the commercial and critical success of the first remake, it's claimed. However, this was declined. And let's just put that in perspective. The commercial and critical success. It was critically lauded, one of the better reviewed games of that year. It is also the best-selling Tony Hawk game ever made, a franchise that has always sold very well. This is infuriating.
Yeah. Chat is really popping off, so shout out to them saying we've got no choice now but to put Cranky Kong and Tony Hawk in Call of Duty.
Let's go.
That's clearly
it's our only choice left, everybody.
It's our only choice. That's the only way we get them. So, or at least in Call of Duty, give us some good like Tony Hawk skate jams, like the Tony Hawk soundtracks where it was at, you know.
Yeah, and that's music isn't good until it's in a Tony Hawk game. Has been my opinion for a very long time. I've heard rumors, and this is unsubstantiated, that the Tony Hawk something could still happen. But at this point, it's like, who would make it? Because I don't think Blizzard Albany / Vicarious Visions is going to be like taken away off of Blizzard stuff to work on it. So, do they go back to that? Like, who did Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 5 and Tony Hawk's Pro Skater HD?
I don't remember the name of the
Mojo Robo or something like that.
Yeah.
Do they go back to that? Because that's not great. Maybe that studio has improved their ability to make Call of Duty. But like the point is like we wanted 3+4 from Vicarious Visions. Yeah. And them just like farting out a 3+4 as a name, but it doesn't have the same spirit and energy and high quality behind it, that would be very troublesome and concerning. Vicarious Visions has always been involved with Tony Hawk. They didn't, they weren't the original developers, but they were the original port studio. And they made great versions of it on Game Boy Advance. And so when they came back and took over Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1+2 and made it feel like Tony Hawk again, it wasn't surprising because they were like, we can make this game feel like Tony Hawk on a Game Boy Advance, let alone be able to make this work in the future. So it's like just having some studio come in and make a Tony Hawk game. I don't know what that looks like. And again, that's unsubstantiated and probably a long ways off. So if it does
I was trying to think the last game that I skateboarded in, and it was that game Annapurna published called Thirsty Suitors. There was a skateboarding portion of that game.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, maybe there was skateboarding and there was like insult battling. So I don't know. Maybe that's where we need to go. That's where we need to go.
Last game I skateboarded in was Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1+2 yesterday. Yesterday I was playing that game. I finished what did I finish? I was playing a game and I finished it, and then I was like, I should play something else, and I couldn't decide, so I do what I always do in that situation and play Tony Hawk. Very good.
Yep.
Research firm reveals the top grossing PC and console games of Q1 2024. This is from Tom Ivan at VGC. Research firm Newzoo has revealed what it's claimed were the top grossing console and PC games in the first quarter of 2024. Its data covers premium and in-game spending across the United States and last year's 5 biggest European game markets, the UK, Germany, France, Spain, and Italy. Fortnite led the way across all tracked markets, accounting for over 10% of total revenue in the first 3 months of the year, according to Newzoo. That's for all games, apparently, which is just nuts. EA Sports FC 24 was Europe's highest grossing title. It came in at number 2. Europe's highest grossing title. It came in number 2 worldwide, generating 8.3% of total revenue. Other top ranking games include Helldivers 2 at number 3, Call of Duty HQ, which is all the Call of Duty games, at number 4, and NBA 2K24 at number 5. Madden NFL 24 came in at number 6, followed by Dragon's Dogma 2, Pal World, and Valorant. Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Siege, which ranked at number 10, accounted for 1.6% of the total revenue. Fortnite was the leading console game by cumulative revenue in the first quarter of the year, while Helldivers 2 was the top PC game ahead of Pal World. According to Newzoo, the global games market generated an estimated $184 billion in 2023, representing a 0.6% increase over 2022, which itself was down 5% year on year. It expects the game market to generate revenues at $189.3 billion in 2024, and for the figure to grow to $205.7 billion in 2026. So they're still expecting quite a bit of growth over the next couple of years. More next year than this year, though. This, once again, Emma, is the recognizable names mostly at the top, but it is interesting to see Pal World and Helldivers be able to crack their way in there a little bit, right?
I love that.
That's like spending on the games to purchase those games, which is a big push for those games, but then also in-game, purchasing, especially for Helldivers 2, which seems to be doing just well with that stuff. Do you think that that stagnation is holding back gaming? Do you think that it's stagnant, or do you think you can't do anything about Fortnite, but maybe it's still worth getting into that top 5, 6, 7th slot, and that you'll make plenty of money that way?
Yeah, it is so funny though when I read these things and I go, "Am I a gamer? Like I don't play any of these sports games." That's just not my jam at all. I think more what it is that it's like I would prefer people to branch out in what they're playing, Like I think that's I look at this and that's why it makes me happy to see things like Helldivers and Pal World making a dent. Yep.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing where those games both have upfront costs. A lot of these other games are free to play or have free to play portions. And it's like, okay, some people are still buying games when they come out to play. But that's the reason why they keep going back to these free-to-play games. No risk involved. Yeah. Just play that and have a good time.
Yeah.
All right, last story here. Midori, who's a leaker of a lot of Sega and Atlas stuff, says Sonic Rumble will be officially announced soon. This is from My Nintendo News. Proven Sega Atlas leaker Midori has stated on social media platform Twitter that the Sonic-themed Fall Guys-inspired party game Sonic Rumble for iOS and Android will be officially unveiled soon. Footage of Sonic Rumble, previously called Sonic Toys Party, leaked a month ago and looks as you would expect from a Sonic party title and includes a number of returning classic characters. Sega has yet to confirm the existence of Sonic Rumble, but Midori says that will soon change. Wonder where that would show up. Like, I'm legit wondering where that would show up. It's like it's a mobile game, so I don't know. I guess that's the kind of thing where maybe it could pop up at like Summer Game Fest still, even if it's a mobile game.
Totally, yeah. I mean, they did definitely show off some mobile titles at Summer Games Fest last year. I got to play like the Final Fantasy VII mobile
Ever Crisis, right?
Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah, Ever Crisis. I look, I think mobile gaming is very legitimate. To me, maybe other people are more mobile gamers than I am and can totally disagree with this statement. But the thing about Fall Guys is it's goofy ass platforming, and I feel like I need a controller in my hand for that.
So I just there with you.
You know, like I just am like, why? I understand from an accessibility standpoint why this is a mobile game, but isn't platforming on a mobile device really frustrating?
Not for kids, apparently.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I'm not
seems to be the audience they're going for with this.
Yeah,
but I wish they would just have it ready for everything. Sure, it can be on mobile, but at least Switch. At least have it ready for Switch as well. I gotta say, I really like the idea of a Sonic Fall Guys party game. That sounds great to me. I don't care.
Awesome.
I played a ton of Fall Guys. I'm more excited about this than I would be for like a Sonic Superstars 2 platformer. Give me the party game, because if that's silly and weird and has if plays oddly, that could be part of the fun.
Right.
And so, but we'll see. I'm really get my hopes up too high. Because I think if they really believed in this game, it wouldn't just be a mobile game; it would be on console as well.
Yes.
And it's like, they have there's an endless ceiling to how much money they can make from one of these mobile games. It's like I think they've done this dance enough times to know that no Sonic mobile game is going to be like Pokemon Go.
No,
they've put out tons of those. They make some money. I'm sure they do fine, but they aren't making $1 billion a year like Monopoly Go or whatever it is.
Yeah.
They're probably making somewhere between a couple million to tens of millions of dollars a year. And that's great. Maybe more than that. I could be wrong, but again, not $1 billion per year. So it's like, okay, well then just make a version for consoles as well. Like I am very excited about this Star Wars Hunters. Very excited is maybe overstating it. I'm somewhat excited about the Star Wars Hunters game from Zynga. That's like this online shooter because it's coming out on mobile and Switch on the same day. And I love that. Right. I'm like, I'll play it on Switch. That's great. Download it for free. Yeah, that sounds fantastic. I wish that was happening with this as well. But hey, I probably would want to attach a controller to a phone, but I'm not actually going to do that, so I'm not going to play it.
No, there's an extra step involved in that wouldn't be involved if I could just play it on Switch, which is the place. Switch is the home of Mario, the gold standard for platforming. Right. So why don't we just also put? I think for me, as a Sega Genesis kid, and as somebody who spent many, many hours playing Sonic Adventure 2 on the Dreamcast, I just think that Sonic deserves better than a mobile game. And again, nothing wrong with mobile games. I just don't think that's where Sonic is meant to be.
Yep. Yeah. And I like Sonic Dash and all those things. I see them. I'm like, ugh. They make that noise mostly. I'm like, yeah. Not for me. But we'll see. There probably could be like a Sonic event here coming soon. I wouldn't be surprised if they have one of those for the summer. They tend to have those every once in a while and then announce a bunch of stuff, including like TV shows and merchandise. I think there was one year where they had one and they had the Sonic bling, like the diamond encrusted like Sonic like necklaces. So maybe we'll get more of those. I don't know. The ice. That's right. Yes.
Yes.
All right. That does it for the news. I got a poll question. I'll get that set up right now. Actually, here it is. Let's do this. I asked for your help selecting which shirt you would want me to get from the 7-Eleven Tetris event. And you all went with option 3, the one that says Tetris, 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 Speedway, the gas station chain. Which, hey, I did get this. So don't worry. It's on its way. I think that's right. Did you see these things? That 7-Eleven's like selling a Tetris handheld, and then they have a bunch of shirts that have 7-Eleven.
Wait, can I go get these at a 7-Eleven?
I bet you'll be able to get some of them. Yes, they have it on the 7-Eleven has their online store for apparel, of course.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna go on a hunt for Tetris t-shirts at 7-Eleven.
Yeah, I have a Speedway near me, and I haven't seen the Speedway shirt, but I'll check out some more 7-Eleven, see if I can find it. But either way, they're selling a handheld that plays Tetris and looks like a Slurpee cup, and then a bunch of these shirts. And so I got a bunch of the shirts. The other options was 30% for the one that has the 7-Eleven logo going down a Tetris well. And then 22% said the one that I think is like the tackiest one, which is why I think I like it a lot as well.
I know, that's why I want that one.
It's like exactly what you want from something like this. All the Tetris pieces flying at the screen, says 7-Eleven at the top, Tetris underneath that,
Incredible.
And then a Slurpee, a pizza, a slice, a hot dog, a big gulp.
It's so stupid. I love it.
I really, really love that shirt. I'm getting that one too, so it doesn't matter. There we go. All right, that was the poll question. Thank you, everybody, for your responses. 1.4 thousand people voting my apparel selection. I appreciate that. I got a new poll question coming up in a second. Before we get to that, though, Emma, why don't you tell people where they can find you on the internet, what you have going on, all that good stuff?
Oh, yes. Well, I'm at Emma Fyffe everywhere. The Emma Fyffes are sold. And there's 3 total F's in my last name. That's Fyffe. It's an unusual spelling of Fyffe, but it is the way we spell my name. And also right now, if you are, just happen to be browsing any of the wikis over on Fandom, you might see me in a video talking about wiki stats, because I like that stuff and I'm very nerdy about it. So I'm doing that. I'm doing this show most Mondays. Just freaking out in the world doing stuff. And I don't really like to use social media very much. So just, catch me in the Giant Bomb Discord and come see our live show on the 9th of June.
Come see it for nothing else other than the stupendous amount of work that Emma has done on it. The absolute astonishing amount of work. So she can have some of the fruits of her labor shown off there. We would appreciate that. Those tickets are on sale now. You can find out the details by going to giantbomb.com. We got them all up there. All right. Okay. New poll question. Let's see. I was going to say, are you interested in Sonic Rumble, which is the mobile Fall Guys clone? Yes or no? I'm just curious. Talk about it on Game Us Mornings on Giant Bomb on Wednesday. Speaking of Giant Bomb, tomorrow's the Bombcast. We'll have a lot to talk about there. Let's see. Later this week, I will be getting back into Daikagrubba, excuse me. Or no, did I say the one that Dan likes? Never mind. I'll go with Daikagrubba. And then we'll have normal stuff. UPF, a voicemail dump truck. I think it's a BCR week. Look out for all the normal stuff. I'll probably play more Fallout New Vegas. Been really enjoying that. People seem to be enjoying watching me play it, even though I'm killing all their favorite characters, Emma. It's going really bad for all their favorites.
Look, honestly, it's the favorite characters' problem for doing you wrong.
Exactly. It couldn't take a joke, and really, I didn't even kill him. He fell down. He fell down.
Sometimes people will die and they fall through a floor in Fallout New Vegas, never to be seen again.
He fell through some dinosaur teeth. It's he fell down after I shot him. Whatever. He fell down though.
It's fine.
That's what matters. All right. Let's see. I think that's going to do it. Emma, thank you so much for spending today talking with me about video games. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you all for watching. You are the best audience in gaming. Until next time, have a good one. Take care of yourself. And goodbye. And check out Blessings Bling.